Good morning, everybody. How are we this morning? Oh, I'm actually starting late, but early at the same time, because I originally scheduled for 9, and then I was like, damn, I might need to schedule it for 9:15, because if my boys are lagging to go to school this morning and the traffic's crap, the boys were good, but the traffic was terrible. I have to go through 4 school zones. It's very, very, very annoying. So Janie is saying going to be dropping in and out as I'm trying to get my episode done. No worries, Janie. And we'll just wait. Hello, Adam. We'll just wait for a few people to come in. Let me just bring this up on my phone.
Hey, Adam, how you going?
Here we go. I'm going to turn my volume down. Gosh, I feel like it's been forever since I did a live. Forever. I actually said to Jen that, yeah, I haven't done one for ages. So I was like, you know, getting a little bit nervous. I don't know why. I don't normally get nervous, but I think I'm just like freaking excited to interview our guests. And sorry, guys, I'm just, oh, that's a good frozen look on my face, isn't it? I'm just doing a couple of tech things here. Whoops, we don't want to watch a hair tutorial, Peter. There we go. Okay, so, hello, Nicholas. So we have got Carl L. Johnson and James Annitto from Duo Daemonology, and I really, really hope that I'm pronouncing that correctly. This morning or tonight for you guys, and very, very excited. So Carl has been investigating for over 47 years, which is insane. And he was one of the original investigators with his twin brother to get called in by the Perron family to investigate the Conjuring House. And then that led into them calling the Warrens in. James, who is the other part, James Annitto, he's been into the paranormal and investigating since he was 15. Like 15. So yeah, they've both been in the field for a very, very long time. James is a theologian, he is a deacon, and obviously they're both paranormal investigators and demonologists. So without any further ado, let's get them on here and delve into the world of demonology. Good morning.
Morning, good morning to you. We hardly know how to address you or what to say. The sun has just risen where you are. Well, a couple of hours ago. You're different.
Yes.
The sun is
yeah. Yes, now that it's, you know, kind of going into springtime, well, it's trying very hard to go into springtime. Our winter is dragging on terribly long. So, yes, getting some lovely sunshine this week. So, guys, you have been working together for quite some time now. Can you tell us a little bit about, you know, what Duo Daemonology is all about?
Yes, we like scary things. Well, of course, duo implies that there are the two of us, and this is James's brainchild. He came up with that title, which is like a slogan, you know, duo demonology. I mean, we could be the two demonologists. That's kind of spooky, you know. We say demonologist, people clear the spaces and they give you the table. You don't want to sit next to you at the restaurants. But you start talking shop. But duo demonology has quite a ring to it, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I like how it's spelled.
Yeah, you like that. Demonology. it ends with Deamonologi, and that is the old-fashioned spelling from the time of King James parlance, and that's how it was originally spelled when what we term the modern era of demonology was ushered in, when the practitioners and students of demonology were trying to move it more over from superstition and burnings at the stake and like really the superstitious aspect of it. They're trying to get more into what is this really? What are people experiencing? What is a demon? Is it as we've thought? Is it the biblical interpretation of a devil? So that's why we call it duodemonology. So it has its roots going back to the late 1500s. It was actually stirring of demonology in the early 1500s, but our mission is to blend the old and the new cultures, like benefit from the old learning, not discount it, not forget it, but try to put a modern slant on it and try to introduce psychology and psychological anomalies, find out what's really going on in the human mind. Because I think psychology is every bit as fascinating as the so-called supernatural, like delving into the mysteries of the human mind, the human psyche. Wouldn't you agree, James?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. Not to linger too long on it, but yeah, duodemonology tries to blend everything. We try a direct approach of not really coming up with a conclusion, but trying to aid the individuals that we, of course, try to assist, and of course also try to get rid of some misconceptions that people tend to believe when it comes to demonic cases. So it's a mixed unit, and it's had its success, and I believe its mission of making more people aware of the rarities of demons and the what ifs, possibilities it could be beyond preternatural. And I think, like Carl said, the human mind's more fascinating sometimes than the things that bump in the night. So, and I think being a part of it with Carl and learning from Carl as well, he says I'm the brainchild of duodemonology, but if it wasn't for Carl, to be honest, when I was formulating the idea in my head, there basically was nobody else that I could think of beside Carl. We had worked together previously when he was a co-founder of a group. I was his tech manager, and I had regarded respect for him before that. So of course, developing and going through, seminary and a lot of things that I went through, and also Carl went through as well through his time. I thought it was a great cooperation, a great package, and I think that Carl has the tenacity as myself to make it a mission.
Yes, and it's not so much that we are crusaders against evil forces as we are a research and study unit. And having said that, it's interesting that it was actually a case of demonology, a demonic situation upon which I was working that brought James and me together, because that's how he first heard about me. That and through my twin brother.
Yeah.
And I was working on a demonology case when James and I first became aware of each other.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting how it occurred.
I was just going to ask, how did you meet?
So to give a little bit of backstory, and then he can expound upon it, because it was his involvement, and it was an episode of The Haunting, right? Or a haunt.
I thought we met in the loo in the men's room, didn't we? That's where we first. You found my card on the urinal. That's it. That's how we met, and you. I'm glad you found them.
But
that's the unglamorous version.
But in all seriousness,
I made that up.
There was an episode called. There was an episode called Demon Attack, and basically Carl was assisting Andre Corey and Stephen Chico and a few people that was part of, and Shane Johnson, that was part of a called Rhode Island Paranormal Society, RIPS. And there was, of course, that case occurred, before it was on television. There was a falling out between the group, and then I was very, very well versed. I don't want to say well versed, but I was very fascinated in the subject.
Very
paranormal,
yes.
Very interested. I actually had met Carl's brother Keith because I was an electronics department manager at Walmart, and I recognized him because he used to go shopping there for his milk and stuff like that too. And I recognized him one day. I said, not to be rude, not the fanboy over here, but I watch Ghost Hunters. I respect your lineage. I know who you are, what you are. And we started talking. I told him where I worked, and he actually started. I told him I was
my brother he's talking about.
Keith. I told him I was interested, and I used to talk to him about recorders and stuff like that because I come from a computer programming background, computer science background initially, and so Carl was involved with this demon attack case, and Andre had left Rips, and we created a group called Ghost Hunters Supernatural Truth. And Andre told me that he regularly talks to Carl, and I was like,
we stayed in touch.
I was like, I really want to talk to Carl. I would love to pick his mind because I've gotten to pick his brother's mind about many different things. That would be like interesting, and of course, I heard a lot from him about Andre. And so, we linked up, and I think there was something that clicked. And
yes, very much so.
There was, of course, between me and my group that I helped found with Andre Corrier, because Carl and Dina of Beyond the Veil Paranormal group,
she was that director at the time.
That they had both co-founded together. They had asked me to be their tech manager, and I was like, "There's no way I could turn that down." And of course, drama. I don't know if it happens in Australia as much as it does in the United States. But,
but you have drama there too, yes.
But it occurred, and that's how
there's drama in any field.
Be it the sciences, be it a theater group or a church group, or any consortium, any research unit is going to have that competition and the fallings out. For no particular reason, I'm just not in touch with the people in that group that James alluded to, RIPS, Rhode Island Paranormal Society. No falling out. I just haven't been in touch with them, But we were on that case, which was documented for television, became an episode of The Haunted. Actually, The Haunted was the name of the series. Dealt with how animals react to paranormal influence. And the name of the episode was Demon Attack. Quite appropriate. It's a fascinating episode. All genuine, nothing contrived, nothing.
And that was 11 years ago, by the way.
Yeah, that was we got 11 years ago now, 2010. That transpired.
And was that in like a private residence situation, or
it was a private residential situation, and we actually consulted the elegant Lorraine Warren of the Warren, Ed Lorraine Warren. I actually spoke to Lorraine Warren about this situation, on the scene, speaking to her, asking her recommendations, and it was successful. It was a successful investigation and intercession. The situation was balanced after that, but there were some horrendous things going on in that house. Fortunately, much of that evidence was actually recorded and got airtime on the television show, and that was all real.
Yeah, Shane Johnson went on an episode of that.
Their founder or co-founder, Shane Johnson, he was the director of Rhode Island Paranormal Society. He was taken over by an invasive entity, and that's all on film. You can see the change she goes through.
It's very aggressive.
Very emotional.
Speaking about the Harris Wilhelm, like the Perron family.
The Perron family, yes.
Huh?
That was my first residential investigation. That was the first time that I and a team actually went to a house to investigate and try and get to the bottom of what was happening there.
And that was 1973, mind you guys. Dedicated to 48 years.
Well, he did say 47, 48 years I've been at it. So I was a teenager, I realized. But that was my first.
That's one ripper of a first case.
Baptism by
That's a good thing to get your feet wet. Right into the fire. Of course, I was not a normal teenager either. I was an abnormal. Well, no, I'll tell you why. I had some facial hair. I had the sideburns. I always had an adult-like demeanor in my teens, and I had this. I had the deep voice that I have now, so they assumed I knew what I was talking about. Well, we're going to try and assess your situation. And I used, 4 or 5 syllable words So they figured this guy must know his stuff, and they didn't know it was my first time in a residential case. Except that I had grown up in a sporadically haunted household, so it wasn't brand new to me. You know, I knew how to react to these things. But boy, we weren't disappointed. Had activity that first day going on there. And some of the phenomena that I experienced in that house in Harrisville that became, 40 years later was The Conjuring. Some of those, became that was the basis for the movie, the motion picture, The Conjuring. And it all started with our investigation, although that's not how it's chronicled in the movie. And, some of the things that we experienced, our team out of Rhode Island College, under the aegis of Rhode Island College, people still experience, to this day, people go in that house, especially at night. It can be day or night, but the investigations can be day or night. Usually they're in the evenings. People still experience those same things that I did, that we did. And they don't even know about it. And they say, oh, yeah, that's what we felt. Like a shadowy form that moves through the house. There aren't too many places that have that. There is a shadow person phenomenon. But this shadowy thing, it's just a darkness, and it moves through the house. It actually seeks egress through stairwells. It doesn't just go through walls. It's got to go down a stairwell, around a corner. It's like a dark fog, and people become aware of it. Boy, it became dark in this room, and you'll see it moving. It's been chronicled. It's been described. It's been filmed. And that's what I got that first day I was there, and that was mid-August 1973. Found that, and people are still getting it. The current homeowners, the Heinzens, Jen and Corey Heinzen, their son Madison, he hadn't been told about that. I experienced that. He was scared out of his wits the first night he stayed in that house. He said, "There's something black in here. It moves around." He didn't want to go back. It took him a while. I think it took him about a month before he even went back into that house because it's unsettling. Expected, I didn't expect something like
He
that.
left because of the shadow.
So that's what ushered me into paranormal investigation.
And like when you and your brother Keith first got there and walked in, was there a feeling that you got from it?
Oh yeah, there was a feeling from the time we pulled up in the driveway, which I expected to feel a little, excited, maybe a little on edge, a little apprehensive, but I was not prepared for what I felt. There's something up here. I feel it is palpable. I wasn't the only one to feel that too. My spider sense was tingling. As soon as we pulled into that driveway, something's up in this house. Granted, it was a house that was built in 1735, was it?
That's very
Yeah.
Yes.
Before the
It was I believe it was let me get a good date on that. I believe it was 1739 that house was constructed, and it hasn't been redone that severely. It looks as it did all those years and years ago. So it felt kind of like it was ominous coming back there. I mean, the house, when the Perrons owned it, I believe it was white then, but it always has had that rustic, old look to it. So yeah, we were in for something. And something you can't really describe. It wasn't even the way the house appeared. It's just we felt we were being watched. This is before they had any security cameras set up. We felt something's watching us. Something does not want us here. And we all concurred on that.
A feeling of, quite a heavy feeling of oppression, or was it just dense, hard to breathe type feel?
It was like a change in the barometric pressure was there. It's like, it just got out. It's like, it felt like as if you were at the bottom of a swimming pool, that kind of heaviness. But, you could sense without seeing it, you could sense something watching. Actually, I do have a year for the house. I remember it was built 1736. So it's had a lot of time to accrue memories. I think even structures can get memories in a sense.
Yeah.
I just felt like it was a big eye looking down at us like, what are you doing here? We don't want you here. That's the sense we got.
Yeah.
Live.
Yeah. I think with time, a house can become as unto a living organism. And the house sometimes likes people and sometimes does not. If you go to investigate or just visit that house, you will probably have a a good experience if you go there with a positive attitude. If you go there trying to say, "Oh, this is just a bunch of hogwash," and I don't like these people. What am I doing? You're gonna have a bad experience there. The house kind of spits one out if they have bad attitudes. Those are the people that out of there screaming or leave right away. I can't stay here. I can't stay here.
Yeah, they kind of the bear. Yeah,
they poke the bear and the bear growls.
Taken on a life of its own, almost. Would you say
What's that?
that the house has almost taken on a life of its own?
Yes, I do like to say that
Yeah.
the house has somewhat taken on a life of its own. It remembers people. It has a past. We don't know how that happens, but so many human minds have contributed to that atmosphere. I think the materials of the building absorb the emotional impressions, and it has its own psyche. There's probably a scientific basis for that too, but the house becomes its own organism, and it will spit people out. People leave there sometimes frightened, want to come back. Why would somebody spend $300+ for a night and overnight, with the two of them, and then pack up and leave within an hour? They went down to the basement, had some kind of bad experience.
I relate that to a kids movie because it's easy for people to relate to pop culture, and grasp onto it. Is the movie Monster House a perfect example of a house that reanimates?
That's a good movie.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Great movie. But it's that concept that the house reacts to like the individual. Like, of course, the house didn't react badly to the husband, but anybody else, especially kids, because the kids killed her, it reacted to like negatively.
Yeah. Like their energy sort of thing that they're taking in there.
Yeah.
And I mean, do you think it's to do with the land or the past of things that have happened within the home?
I say yes and yes. Well, this was the setting. All of New England is kind of a haunted region anyway, but that was settled early on. That house was built only 100 years after Roger Williams founded Providence, which became the capital city of Rhode Island. And it has staying power. I'm sure there were skirmishes between the Native Americans, the native populace, and the white settlers back in the day. It's isolated. It's past the 7 Mile region, which was thought to be in the 18th century supposed to be the safe region where the Redskins were. You're apart from them. And when you pass 7 miles out of Providence, you're on your own. Kind of, there's no constabulary, nobody to save you, no cavalry, and so that's I'm sure there's a lot that happened there. And people were of a very serious mind back then. There was not in colonial New England. There wasn't a lot of laughter and joy. Very sober, somber people, and they say human nature is consistent, but back then folks were different. They just had to survive. They had to eke out a living, live off the land, so to speak. And many died young. They really mourned their dead. We know from the epitaphs on tombstones. So I think it was more of a serious, just survival mindset back then. So I think there's a residue of that still permeates the land and the house. Now these are theories. They are guesses. But if you have the chance to go there, if they ever let you out of Australia.
The borders are opening, so I might make a run for it.
Get out while we can.
If you get a chance to go there, I think you will agree that there's something different and indefinable about that property and the house. So I think that's why it's been haunted. I don't know if the eerie feeling came first or the haunting second or how that happened, but you do have a feeling that it's alive and watching you, that house is.
Well, too, and to be honest, I think with a haunted location, there's always an element to the human element of the property, because you think about the Perron haunting, and I know maybe it's an unpopular thing to say this, but you had 5 young teenagers, young girls, permeating within that location.
We're talking about the Perron family during the 1970s.
We talk about of course, the poltergeist, being necessarily a thought form. Noisy goes for the interpretation of most people, which is a German word. But you think about that. There's 5 adolescent girls. That, of course, we all know how women, especially sisters, act to each other. We watched the freaking Brady Bunch over here in America, so we know all too well. But
families are supposed to be.
Yeah. But in all seriousness, you had that kind of mixture of energy. You already had a property that's very old, has had a lot of trials and tribulations around the property, within the property. And then, of course, you have that dynamic. And I think with the Perron family, it aided to that, because if you think about it, Roger was very, at first, apprehensive about it. Like, this is not occurring, but it was happening to Caroline. It was happening to the girls. It was very apparent to them. And so I think that had a dynamic. And I like to beat the dead horse here, but I always go back to Charles Dickens and his pamphlet on Haunted House, how he even knew back in 1890 that it was an interpretation of the human adding to the location that creates the haunting. The etymology of the word haunting, if you look at the word, the definition of it, for the haunting to occur, you have to be haunted.
That's still kind of an eerie word in itself, haunting. Like the house is haunted. That does give me a shiver in your timbers even to hear that.
Your past haunts you. It's the same reflection. If you do past things that you regret, they haunt you, linger for a lot of people.
Exactly what I was going to say. It's actually lingering, staying, remaining, haunting.
Yeah. And what was I going to say? Like Andrea Perron, said that, it made the whole situation worse after the Warrens were brought in. Would you agree with that? Or?
Well, if you watch the movie, The Conjuring, the Warrens are called in and they save the day. Dear cost to themselves. There's what I like to say is truth is stranger than, but not nearly so palatable as is fiction. So it's truth is stranger than fiction, but people don't like it as much. They prefer the fantasy. And it didn't happen that way. The Warrens were there, I know, because and the team contacted Ed Lorraine Warren. We were acquainted with the Warrens, my brother and I,
Yeah.
We called in Ed Lorraine Warren, called on them to consult. We were never intending to invite the Warrens. You got to help us. We're in over our heads. No, we never were. We just thought it would be a nice professional touch, since we knew the Warrens, to consult them. And Ed Warren immediately volunteered to come to the house. Sounded like an interesting case to them. And so I said, sure, come on over. I'll show you just where it is. We didn't know they were going to take over and usurp our case. And I'm not saying this with any acrimony or bitterness. Our original director of our team, Pyro, is called Parapsychology Investigatory and Research Organization, based in Rhode Island College. She's bitter to this day. She resents Ed and Lorraine for taking over. She says, I'm sorry they're gone, but I could never forgive Ed and Lorraine for stealing our case. And that's true. It just no longer has any emotional impact for me. But when the Warrens took over that case, without telling us, suddenly we didn't hear from the homeowners anymore, because we would eventually find out that Ed and Lorraine had told Roger and Carol and Perron they could be of no help unless they were the only paranormal investigators there. But when we ceased to investigate, the Warrens took over, it went from a scientifically based paranormal investigation, and became an intercession. Because they were convinced from the start that the house was demon ridden, and they had to clear the demon out. No longer an investigation, no longer empirical evidence. Then they just, accept that it's a demon and gotta drive it out.
Yeah.
Two different approaches to the same case.
Mm-hmm.
And do you believe that there was a demon at that home?
No, I don't.
You went there?
In the classic definition of a demon, meaning a malevolent spirit, and James will tell you, our definition of demonology is the systematic study of the lore and cultural traditions of wicked spirits. Could also say we're Chthonicists or Cathonicist in Great Britain. someone who studies underworld gods and spirits. So I never felt that there was an evil spirit. I felt it was ominous, a force to be reckoned with. And anytime you say, there's this, trepidation there, but I never felt it was overtly evil and trying to drive people out. Now, Carolyn Perron was very impressionable, very sensitive, psychically, empathic, but prone to belief, let's say. I don't know if I want to go as far as to say delusional. It was very real to her, but from somebody else might interpret that like, oh, that's interesting. I heard somebody walking down the stairs. There's somebody there. Well, that door opened. That's not interesting. To Carolyn, it became monstrous, because of her sensitivity and because of her basic interpretation of that entity or force within the house. So I just never thought it was demonic. I do not think it was demonic then. I don't think now that it was demonic. I don't think it's demonic at all now. I don't think it ever was demonic. This whole fanciful history has grown up about the past of the Conjuring House.
That was like a Dr. Seuss riddle right there.
It was like that.
It was not green eggs in hand, dear sir.
I do not like these.
James, you're going to have to write the demonology book. Based on
the whole fanciful history. It does read like a Dr. Seuss story, just a malevolent one. And but people love that fantasy, and it was fodder for a movie. Got to be true if they put it on a movie screen. And I liked the movie. I didn't expect to enjoy that movie. My brother talked me into it. I said, it's not going to be real, and I don't know if I want to see it. But he wanted the original investigating team, which was us and Donna, a couple of others. He wanted us to go and view that movie. And I thoroughly enjoyed The Conjuring motion picture. It wasn't real, except when they go inside some of the house's interiors that they recreated. Like the kitchen, when they show Ed and Lorraine interviewing Roger and Carolyn Perron, it was like a scene out of the past. The same equipment, and it really did look like the kitchen in the parents' house. And the portrayals, I've got to say, for all my criticism of the movie, saying it's unrealistic, just loosely based on a true history. When you see Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson playing respectively Lorraine and Ed Warren, you're watching the Warrens, because that's how they were. They were charming. They were fun to be around. They were fascinating people. I do not agree with their methodology, of course not. I didn't like them taking our case away, but you see them at the lecture hall when they're introducing Ed and Lorraine Warren, and they first meet in the fancy. They meet Carolyn Perron according to the script. When they're showing Ed and Lorraine lecture there, and they say, "So you're Lord." Somebody in the audience asks a question. So what do people, your ghost hunters, demonologists, what do people call you? And Ed Warren said, Patrick Wilson said, kooks. And to watch them lecturing in that banter, it's like watching Ed and Lorraine Warren. It doesn't. If you met the Warrens or didn't see actual footage of them, that's as close as you're going to get to depicting the Warrens. They pulled it off very, very nicely. They look. They sound like the Warrens.
You got to give also good credit to even though his recent movie Malignant was terrible, James Wan's a phenomenal director most of the times, and created a great series which I think surpasses the Conjuring series, and that's Insidious, one of the greatest paranormal movies that exists, especially about astral projection. But yeah, definitely, a great director, great chemistry between the actors, and it was definitely a good series for sure so far.
Yes. Credit for James Wan for expanding.
Being a demonologist, can you explain to the people watching what it means to be a demonologist and what you do?
Yeah. So you gotta be careful.
Yeah. Well, Carl explains it very well, and we basically look at it. There are the same format as like a theologian. They study it's the science of God, right? But then there's biologists that can do lab studies or do academic studies and expand their minds. So it's in the same sense that as demonologists, we're applied demonologists. We apply the literature, the cultures, the traditions that have occurred. Of course, the hierarchies, martyrology, other aspects of theology, such as angelology, where demonology branches from. We incorporate all the characteristics of hauntings and parapsychology, working with psychologists and dealing with physicians. We apply all that literature and all that academia and apply it to case settings where there could be academic demonologists where all they do is read literature and never apply it. They just want to be wise to what is the literature, what is the traditions, the lore out there. But we apply it. So, but a demonologist is definitely multifaceted.
I think you have to be as well an angelologist to be a demonologist, really look at both sides. And there exists that dichotomy in the discipline. There's, as James was saying, there is academic demonology, which is the study of, and applied demonology. Now we have to be familiar with demonology, but because we address cases personally, we are the applied demonologist aspect.
And
yes,
really,
I find it funny when people say believe in angels, but they don't believe in demons, or they believe in demons, but they don't believe in angels. You know, like
more press. Some people refuse to believe in demons, but stick with angels. Yeah.
Sorry, what was that, Carl?
I say some people will stick with demons and don't care about the angels, and conversely, some people want to know. I talk to my angels every day. I let my angels in the house, but they don't want to hear anything about demons. Well, I think to be well-rounded, you have to have both, really. I mean, they're celestial beings. They're thought to be inhuman, never walk the earth in human form, as Ed Warren would say. We don't know a heck of a lot about either. Just when things start happening in the house and they're unpleasant and they're unexplained, it's attributed to the demon. But I have heard some remarkable accounts of angel intervention. Not consistently. They don't help everybody every time, but they can. They're limited. They're not omniscient. However, there have been some remarkable case histories of someone showing up, helping out, saving a life, helping a situation, and suddenly they're gone. And nobody knows where they went or whence they came. What are they? And we say angels. So it's just a fascinating system to think of these celestial beings intervening in human affairs. And my own personal interpretation of a demon, as it's evolved over the years. Now I say it's a poltergeist with a really poor attitude, really loud. Poltergeist, a poltergeist can throw things fine, all well and dandy, but if it gets really nasty, all right, now you're a demon.
It's quite possible. Sorry. It's quite possible. I think a lot of people for a long time separated poltergeist and demonic, and maybe they were intertwined at one point. A lot of people don't realize there are a level for some people that understand like poltergeist. There's like a level determination of 1 through 5. 5 being the most dramatic and theatrical, of course. And
I've seen a 5
psychic tantrum, but I like to call it. But in the same essence, though, is people tend to forget that a poltergeist, even though human projection, reality, these things can gain a personality, gain a cognitive abilities.
Its own cognition, its own, like you say, cognitive ability to act like a person throwing a tantrum. I mean, when you look at analyze a ghost and a poltergeist in action, there's not a heck of a lot of difference. Except when I think of ghost, I'm usually picturing somebody, like some man or woman.
Oh, did you see that? Oh no!
When we talk about these things, they start happening. We've got to be careful. That's why we're keeping on. But you think of a person. I don't know why so many ghosts are from the 17 or 1800s. Usually, 18th or 19th century attire, walking through a parlor in an old house. That's the classic ghost, not bothering anybody. But who's that man in costume? Oh, that's our ghost. Oh my God! And Well, but a poltergeist is more like hands-on, even though it doesn't have hands. You know, a poltergeist moves things. Noisy ghost, rattling spirit. I should let you talk.
So how many like demonic cases have you come across, like in your time investigating together? Because there's, you know, like every second person who's investigating or putting out, you know, content on YouTube, it's a demon, it's a demon, it's like, you know, 3 a.m. it's a demon, like, you know.
Well, that's largely thanks to the motion pictures and the novels, you know, The Exorcist and the Amityville Horror. That has ingrained our concept, and the Western Occidental culture has ingrained our concept of a demon. Now, when you say how many cases, do you mean that we've actually been involved with and adjudicated as demonic? Because if you mean people called us really demonic cases, that'd be about 30 in the last 2 years. But
more than 30, it's like every day.
Yeah, that's right. You really does that up.
Wow, I wasn't expecting it.
And we've counseled people as far as actually going to a residence and to a location and analyzing it, writing notes on it, studying it, encountering the activity. For me, it has been, my count is 5. Out of all of these cases, 5 of them have I adjudicated as being demonic in nature. And you, James?
That's 48 years. You know, yeah. I know people like to like pound on that sometimes about like talking about, but 48 years to say you only have dealt with 5, it's just like always eye-opening to me, even somebody that's involved in it. You know, because it just shows you, like, if you look at it in an analytical approach, that you can diagnose a lot of these things to be what it is not. And it's a lot of people would jump to it to be demon, and you know, we have a lot of people that self-diagnose, like they're looking up WebMD on demons and they're possessed. So it's a you know, a lot of occurrence. But as far as Carl, you know, as you said, 15 years old, I've only come across 5 cases as well, and I would say out of those 5 cases, 3 of those were demonic possession that I would qualify that were diagnosed by individuals with a medical degree. So, but yeah, it shows you. And as far as I heard you throw a little bit of what we did together, as far as cases that we've done together, yes, he dealt with the demon attack. I wasn't physically associated, but yeah, working together, we've actually never worked on a demonic case together. To be honest, we've worked on, you know, not lower class cases, whatever, because everybody that we deal with is a person, and they deserve to be dealt with and helped if possible, if they're allowed to be helped, if they allow themselves to overcome the victim mentality. But I think the closest case that we came on to, which kind of makes me laugh, and I always think about, we worked on a lot of quite a few cases together, but our first case together that was a residential was a house in Connecticut, I believe. And it was Dina, Carl, myself. And we go to this residence, and as soon as you walked in the house, you got hit by an entrenched smell. It was like malodorous within the environment. It was like, you know, you hear about demonic cases smelling the sulfur, that like very disgusting. Like, it hits you, the barometric pressure changes, like all these occurrences change in the environment. That's kind of what you felt going into this house. But mind you, we were in this case, and to make this short, is that we were all sitting on the furniture. I'm snooping around because I'm not a big snooper, but when you're investigating, trying to get a mental load on who these people are, how they live, you know, not to judge them, but kind of get a better understanding of their like pathology. And you know, I stumbled upon this room with, I think, like over a dozen cats. Mind you, that smell and the odor that hit us was ammonia, because that everything we were sitting on had cat piss all over it.
Yeah.
So but that's a lot of the cases we deal with, unfortunately, and but that's why we have to come up with a psychological ramification as well as mental, like a medical standpoints. Like, yes, we deal with the paranormal. We do both believe something occurs that's unexplainable, but especially with what we deal with, we have to deal with individuals, the characteristics, their personalities, and we've even come across people that have been diagnosed schizophrenics as well. So
there's a fine line there. When he was talking about that place with the cat odor, that was acrid.
Oh, it's bad.
It's like, now you can see why this woman would be prone to hallucinations. Actually, being subjected to that all the time, and I think your olfactory is dull to it after a time. They would have to for it to subsist there, and of course, it probably had a physical effect on her perception. I wouldn't want it. Uric acid, ammonia, 24 hours a day. But yeah, that fine dividing line between psychology and parapsychology. We never actually determine the difference. But as far as the demonic case, I think James will support me on this. We've never run into a case that was adjudicated as demonic that didn't have some psychological leanings to it. There always present was invitation, even if that invitation to the spirit was not intended. Always some unresolved conflict, some background trauma that incited this. It may have been from childhood, may have been later on. But there's always something went wrong down the railroad track of life. It turned, something went wrong at a certain point, and it was manifested as the demon. It's a principle called, I've termed it parapsychological projection. And that's not saying all imagination. The thing becomes real. It takes on the house in Harrisville, takes on its own life and starts behaving like an organism.
And in reality, the kind of backbone off of that is that if you think about it, if you really believe in that element, these entities have demons were once gods of old civilizations. Pazuzu, aka the Exorcist, was a god of pestilence in Mesopotamian times. That's very, very long time ago. And so if you think about it, if these things existed in the human consciousness, and many people, mass people, believed in it in a conscious standpoint, we hear these terms, collective consciousness. Is it the possibility of that we have created these beings? I don't necessarily believe this in the full degree. I think there is a part of the puzzle to it. What I'm speaking, of course, this is a theory, so it could be a jumbled mess as much as it could be. But I think that over time, if we kept believing in this pattern and believing in these thoughts, that we could manifest these, and they could again off of that thought, because a lot of people do believe in demons. Look at Pazuzu and what the Exorcist did with Ouija boards. Now the Zozo. Well, look at the Zozo phenomenon.
Zozo, yeah.
That came from a cultural phenomenon with the Ouija board. So and that created a life of its own. People experienced Zozo, and then when
Zozo became real in the collective unconscious.
And look at another one that people don't forget is, I love this movie. It's a great movie. It's The Gallows. Charlie the Mexican Demon was a thing with the two pencils. Like, people actually thought Charlie the Mexican Demon existed. Like, how ridiculous is that? But people really believed in it. It was everywhere. Like, people were going crazy about it.
Yeah.
As they were.
That was a good movie, The Gallows. So, geez,
I haven't even seen it.
You haven't seen The Gallows?
I
confess. The crap out of my older son. Like, he's 17 now, but yeah, like, he still couldn't watch it again. I'm just like, dude, how is that scary? That's like down the ladder, dude. Like.
Now, I take it you ladies were probably brought up with Christian background or Judaic,
Catholic, but not practicing. Yeah.
Right. I want to give you an example. Feel this resonate in your mind and your emotions. Satan, Lucifer. I mean, doesn't that give you a little uneasiness, right? It still does me. There's power and impact in these names, in their traditions. People have a concept of who Satan is. And it's tough not to believe. Well, it certainly is. Well, there you go.
I joined the Horn Club.
The Horn. Yeah, there's a horned man and a horned lady.
They both have horns. There's two horned ladies and a horned man.
I see you shifting. Yeah. Don't feel left out, Jen. I don't have horns either.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
well,
just horns.
Yeah, that's the best
Oh,
I can
those are not horns. Those are glasses. They look like horns. You should go back to normal.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Well, I must say, Peter, if we do meet, please keep the horns. They're kind of nice. I mean, you know, don't lose them. You know, I'm already used to seeing you like that.
Yeah, like is one shoulder the angel, one shoulder the demon with you guys?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, really? That's interesting because my brother and I, one's the evil twin, and one's I've been hearing that since I was
The
Five
yin and
years
the yang,
old.
yeah, the yin and the yang over here.
Yeah, I'm very obviously the evil twin, and Keith is the angelic good twin. Yeah. What are you going to do once you saddle with that? You can't get away from it.
Yeah, the Johnsons are the definition of a theodicy right there.
Yeah. What the
So,
name?
like
Yeah,
with
like-
like the possession type cases that
Yes.
you've dealt with, how did that go down? Like, is that like how it's portrayed in The Exorcist? You know, like.
Well, now they have to compact things and to have an effective story and movie.
Mm.
The Exorcist was predicated on an actual case. There were a lot of differences.
Mm-hmm.
My first residential case, as you heard, was the house in Harrisville. Now, you can't convince me that was demonic. There's a lot of misconceptions about the house, a lot of incidents that didn't actually transpire there. They've been jumbled around. But my second residential case was a case of full-blown demonic possession. So again, thrown into the fire. I was what, 21 years old. I was thrown into that. You know, it's the first case I was 18, second case I'm 21, and you know, there it is. Spooky stuff, really. And to talk about it is one thing all these years later, but to actually have been there. My feeling when that was transpiring was like, I want to be anyplace else. I want to drive back to my parents, which I was living with my parents. I want to go back to my parents' house because there's food in the refrigerator. I'm not going to be bothered. I just want to go back there. I want to get out of this crazy situation.
Yeah.
But I also knew if I left and didn't help these people, which I was called in to do, if I left, I might not be able to go back to such a situation again. How would I know I would never face it again? Because of that, and because of an urge to, you know, like help these people, to inspire some confidence in them. I stuck it out, and I was glad I did because that was also successful. It was a good situation overall. It turned out.
As far as close to the movies, like I think Carl's situation with the 14-year-old boy in Providence, you know, he did come out spinning, and you know there was a case that you had transvection occur, knife levitating, right?
Yes.
So these things do.
Oh, wow, really?
Well,
Oh,
some of
wow.
the things we've seen that we have seen. I mean, what James was speaking of, there's the 14-year-old boy was the subject in this demonic case. I was invited to stay overnight and observe. I thought probably, even though I was 21 years old, I thought it's probably he has a form of epilepsy, and it's interpreted like another personality is taking over him. But I'll tell you, I stayed overnight. At around 1 a.m, I was startled awake by an ear-splitting scream. This boy screamed as if he was being flayed alive. I fumbled for the wall switch, turned on the overhead light.
Chills.
To be there. I mean, I'd never experienced anything like this. I don't think it matters how much experience you've had with something like this. It's still very startling. His bedroom door opened on its own about this fast, and his body it was like two men had tossed him out, flew out, and he was spinning his body. And I'm not exaggerating what we're doing here. That was his body spinning around like a dreidel, careening against the walls. Pump. And he's screaming all through it in obvious terror, screaming and being lifted and thrown. And that scream saluted other members of the household, and they came in. I'm standing there transfixed. I've never seen this. What am I going to do? And he did a kind of backwards flip and landed on the sofa where I had been reclining, jumped up and down, waving his hands. It went from bad to worse, I'll tell you. And this deep guttural laughter ushered from his throat, but very loud, louder than he should have been able to emit. And he looked at me he was like looking into the face of hell. He was wild. He was absolutely wild. And this look, and he flew at me. Now, I had to move. I tried to restrain him. He pushed me right back. And, you know, what do? You know, there's no right thing to do. And then he came out of it. We're talking about perhaps 50 seconds, but enough. It was terrifying. And then he came to himself. He's calling for his uncle, and he was shivering and crying. So what we did was we arranged an expulsion, which is a form of minor, not formalized exorcism. And to make a long and very unwholesome story shorter, we were successful, and the spirit was driven out. Now, you mentioned paranormal activity. You perked up on that we have experienced. Other things I've seen, this boy's face is what we call triangulated, was drawn, corded. Cheekbones very prominent. Twice I have been seated in a chair, and the chair moved back across the room with me in it. One time was during the expulsion. Another was a poltergeist case. Now, in a different situation, a kitchen knife flew down the hallway, but it wasn't spinning like somebody tossed it. I just happened to look, and a kitchen knife came down the hallway in this haunted residence, and I was holding a remote thermal graph. It hit the instrument I was holding and clattered to the floor. And the homeowner said, "Oh my God, that's not even one of my knives."
No.
Wow.
I
Where
mean,
did it come from?
in the same room, I was standing there, and a dinner plate smashed in front of me. Actually, I think it was more like a bowl, a dinner bowl, smashed in front of me. And one of the ladies there were like 5 people in the room, and she's saying, "Oh my God, did you see that? It came out of the wall. It came out of the wall. It just appeared over him, and it came out of the wall." And it smashed in front of me. I don't react when these things happen, mind you. Not visibly. So I started picking up the shards of crockery. And I said, "Somebody get me a plastic bag. I want to save these." And I said to the homeowner, I said, "Tina, this is warm, kind of damp. What does that mean to you?" And she said, "That came out of my dishwasher." Dishwasher was 2 rooms.
No way.
Oh my God. When you put it together, a lot of freaky things were happening.
Yeah. And two,
And the boy, did he remember, like, when he was doing the whole spinning, and did he recall doing that? Oh my gosh.
I think if you asked him these days, he would not have any recollection of it. He didn't seem to remember it. Like a year later, I asked him about it. I was still in touch with him. He said, I really don't. He was casual. He said, "I really don't remember much about it." It's like a flash in the pan for him. His ordeal lasted a year, but by another year, it was gone.
Oh,
He had one more incident where his family, they were driving by a cathedral church in Providence, Rhode Island, and he started to scream in the back seat. But after that, nothing else. Nothing else. Like a little residue left him. Now look at the aspects we had. He was 14 years of age, a formative time of life. He was born in New York City, but his family was from the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, and they embrace a belief in spirit invasion, spirit communication. So his aunt was a Santerian practitioner. So you got all this confluence, all these factors tying in to explain what was going on with him. I mean, that wouldn't happen to every child at that age, but him it did. His sensitivity, his receptivity. It started when he found a glove, just a single lady's glove, on a walkway in a cemetery in the West End of Providence. He picked it up, brought it home. His aunt told him to bring that back. You put it where you found it. He went to get it to put it back because that spooked him. He went to get it and the glove was gone, disappeared. Hey, same thing happened to my parents' house. A singular lady's glove appeared on the floor in a hallway. Well, I'm asking my mother, whose glove is this? And I don't recognize it. Where's the other one? No, it was nobody, a leather glove. And then I put it on the kitchen table. I didn't know what to do with it. I suppose I was going to put it back in the glove bag, and it was gone. I said, who the heck took the glove? I didn't take it. I didn't take your dang glove. I didn't take it. I'm telling you, So it's like, well, so there you go, the glove phenomenon. I don't know if that foreshadowed what I was going to experience years later.
That is really interesting. How difficult was it to get that spirit out of, or demon out of the boy?
Yeah, well, basically commanding it to go. We had to confront it. At one point during this expulsion rite, I felt that it was trying to take over me. Now, I'm not like saying, oh my God, I see the spirit here. Oh, it's on me now. That's just not me. It wasn't me then. But I felt in the back of my head, it's called the Mons area, the brain. I felt this tugging, and I felt an onrush of emotion that was alien to me. I felt panicking and anger. And for the life of me, just like some instinct, I wanted to jump out the window. It was telling me to jump out the window. This is freaky. I'm not on any kind of psychotropic drug. I don't know why I'm feeling this, except look what's happening here. And suddenly it came on me unexpectedly. Well, I just concentrated on my own sense of self, and it withdrew from me. I felt it like whoop, like a vacuum in the back of my head. But right then, there was a lady in the next room, a young lady who was there to assist. She fell down on the floor and started pulling out her hair. It's like it went from me to her, because I resisted strongly. And we commanded it to leave. I said, it culminated. I must say I was a big part of this. I was a big part of this whole scene. This boy, Lucas, he was tall for his age. He was my height. He started advancing at me like Dracula. He started coming towards me. I didn't know what was going to happen because he's walking steadily at me with that wild look in his eyes, ferocious. He came towards me, and I didn't know what else to do, so I had no powers. I held up my hand and I said, "Stop." And he stopped. And I went up to him and I put my hand in the back of his head, like comforting him, And that seemed to calm things. We told it to leave, to give a sign of your departure. You will leave here. My brother was assisting too. He was there. So we're telling it, go, leave now. You have no place. This is not your house. It worked. I guess we bluffed the demon or whatever, because it was better after that. But I'm more interested in the psychological aspects of that. Why did this happen? How did it manifest? Oh, a religious picture fell off the wall. No other pictures. The floor shook like an earth tremor or a truck going by, but it wasn't. It just the floor groaned, like the house groaned. And I was looking at a picture of Jesus. I was hoping the boy would look at it so it would distract him. I was next to the table. I looked at it, and a minute later, that picture had turned itself upside down.
What?
So silently, if you had a video camera, security camera there, you would have seen that picture invert. Because I didn't hear it. That was the eerie part of it. I didn't hear it turn. It just was upside down. That and a dozen other things that went on that night. But it was horrendous. It was a storm, and it passed, and it cleared.
And what about you, James? Have you ever had anything try and latch onto you from a case or location you visited?
Yeah, I wouldn't say latch on. I definitely dealt with a case nearby in East Providence that kind of had a sort of an afflicting factor on me. But that was more because the human psyche, I was very egotistical. I was very young getting involved in this field. As well, I didn't think I was, I didn't think I could be touched. Nothing really bad had happened to me. I was dealing with negative cases, going to people's houses. Why I got into it kind of unfolded. I started having popularity. And I was dealing with this case that I really believe something negative was at play, but it was also a bad area. There was a lot of dynamics. The household was packed to the brim, and some family members were dabbling into different things, not the occult, so to say, but maybe gang-related and drugs. So there's a huge dynamic there, and I think with that combination of things and maybe something actually being there negative, it was just enough to keep feeding it. And I let my guard down. I did a blessing there and basically kind of provoked instead of doing religious provocation. I did provocation.
You
And
defied it.
I defied it, and I definitely dealt with weeks of pain afterwards. I never try to jump to the paranormal anymore. I always try to check off as many natural boxes as possible. I was more gullible back in the day for sure. I thought, when I first got into it and had experiences, maybe things are more ghosts, and I think that's the nature of growing and learning. But I definitely challenged it and definitely challenged myself. It was something that when I was dealing with this affliction, I didn't think it was a spirit. Like, I legitimately lost my girlfriend. I legitimately lost the place I was renting. I got kicked out. I lost my job.
This is all with a short span of time.
This was a couple weeks. I went from having at least $1,000 in the bank to going negative. I got hacked. Like, somebody took all my money. It was just so many things one after another.
I hope you were being careful crossing the street around that time.
I started to become depressed as people started reaching out to me. Being involved in this field, we definitely relate and talk to a lot of people that believe they have some psychic ability or some sort of intuition or perspective, a sixth sense. And so I had people reaching out to me that some of them did not know each other and told me the same thing. James, we feel something like on your left, or I think it was my left shoulder, that is latched onto you. It's not in you, but it's latched onto, it's feeding off of you. And I'm laughing it off. First few times I'm laughing it off. I think I got to 8 or 9 or 10 people that told me the same exact thing. I'm kind of light bulb went off. And when that light bulb went off, I actually got a call from the client that day. That light bulb went off, said things are starting to happen again. And I don't really tell people that if you have things going on in life, you should go jump into a case because you're putting the family at risk. And of course, being egotistical and kind of provoking it the way I did and kind of challenging it was dangerous already. Of course, I got the ramifications of it more so than the clients did. But it came back when I had that light bulb. And the client called me, and the Nightbreed Paranormal, the team I was working with, Joe Andrade, Paul Davis, and we were working with the team Spirit Factivity, Brian, that brought us onto that case. We all went back, and I got a deliverance done on me that day. I felt relieved. I went into that case with a new perspective. After that deliverance, it was the first time I got a baptism again. And it was soothing. And it was an experience, but I definitely had something follow me home or linger within myself. And it was always a learning lesson for me that I try to tell people that, any castle can be, scaled and invaded. You have to prepare yourself of the possibilities, but you can't also linger on it. But you can't also think you're better than anybody or better than anything that you can't see. And sometimes you have to live that to learn that mistake. But, doing with what we do, there's a lot of dangers involved in it, in that circumstance, because we deal with a lot of not just negative spirits, but people going through traumatic and negative things or negative themselves, and even entanglement. It's like in a psychological word, entanglement. You can become entangled with that person. A lot of their habits can become your habits if you let it linger within your life. So there's a lot of danger with what we do, and that has happened. I've become depressed after dealing with depressed individuals. So there is so much entanglement within what we do.
I mean, I had a very negative attachment when I was 15 in this house. from an antique mirror that my mother bought at a garage sale. And that went on for almost a year. You know, and thankfully, you know, with my mother fighting, you know, to get me kind of through it, and you know, we destroyed the mirror, and I had no clue what was going on, obviously. But yeah, it was quite a traumatic experience. But I seem to get a lot of male spirits following me home from locations. My viewers are kind of like starting to tally, I think, because of all the ghosty boyfriends I bring home. And but yeah, like I recently like did you know, like cleanse myself and all of that, and you know, it's amazing, you know, like you're saying, like psychologically, because I was feeling very oppressed and depressed, and having those, you know, that kind of thought process, you know, day to day. And you know, it might not have been just from me cleansing, but you know, almost that psychological placebo effect of believing in it, and I feel better now. And and you know, and I've been doing, you know, awesome the last, you know, few weeks since I got rid of them. But you know, I had a few disembodied voices here at the house yesterday. Someone having a good old
Voices.
But, hey,
Disembodied voices, you say?
yeah,
Not just a recording, an audio recording, but an audio sensation,
Audible,
where you heard it, like an AVP, audible voice phenomenon.
Yeah, so I was home alone, and because, you know, like the radio is usually going, but it was just quiet, and you know, I'm just, you know, going about my business, and I hear like a full-blown conversation, and I stop, and I'm just like, oh, hello, and then nothing. So I just stood there for a minute, and then I heard a female a few meters from the other direction. And I'm like, well, are you going to invite me to join in on the conversation? Like, come on. But yeah.
I know it's very real. I've experienced just what you're saying. Yeah. It comes and it goes like a quick psychic storm, and you know, you don't know. It's like there's an angle, a dimension, it's kind of turned, and suddenly you're privy to a conversation from another plane, another world. And then it goes. Whether it's incidental, whether they wanted you to hear it or not, is just conjecture. But I think you just pick up on it. It could be a blurb from the past, you know, or maybe the future that hasn't probably from the past, you know. I think of our realities as different, like plates they're two-dimensional, which is impossible in our physical world to have purely two-dimensional. And I think all the information all the noise from their world is on that plate. And the plates are in motion, if you understand the graphic I'm illustrating here. And sometimes they bisect, and then you hear things. Oh, my word, I know just what you mean. I worked at historic Slater Mill, which is renowned as the seat of the American Industrial Revolution, commencing in 1793. It's obviously more complex than that, but they give the date of 1793. That's where the building, the museum in which I worked, was constructed. And that place, you'd hear people talk. They'd interrupt our tours during the conversation. You couldn't usually make out what they were saying, but you sure knew they were talking. You know, I was in a house with James mentioned Dina. Dina Palazzini was the founder of Beyond the Veil Paranormal. And James, for a time, was our tech manager, member of our investigating team. And I had just gotten together with her, and like maybe a month and a week before or something. Well, she had a friend downstairs, and it was a 3-story house, tenement house. Billy was actually a couple of years younger than I. Looked like he was in great shape, but he had a congenital heart defect. And one day I wasn't there. Billy just died, just collapsed, and he could not be resuscitated. And Dina was there when it happened. She ran downstairs. She heard him fall. His girlfriend was hysterical. But Billy used to watch out for her like a big brother. He'd call her D. You just have to believe me. If Dina was here, she'd support it. We were upstairs. It was 11:20 p.m. and I was untangling a silver necklace chain. And I gave, hey, try your luck with it, I said. And all of a sudden we heard, D, are you there?
Oh, wow.
It was coming out of the air. I mean,
Yeah.
we were on the third floor. I just went, we looked at each other. I got up, opened the door. There was nobody there. But we heard it in the room. Clear as anything.
Yeah.
But it had that AVP spirit voice quality to it. What I mean is, when it's a spirit speaking, you'll hear it enunciate, you'll hear it speak, but then it stops like in a vacuum. When we speak, normally there is a resonance, a little bit of an echo after we speak, and we're just used to acclimated to it. This just, you hear the sound and it stops boom, immediately. And D, are you there? And I am sure that was Billy. Yeah. I'm sure it was him because he lived downstairs where he was in the house for a couple of years at least. And D, are you there? It wasn't a panicky or nervous voice, just matter of fact, D, are you there?
Yeah, I want to follow up on that. It wasn't audible, but it was a shared experience with Carl that I always stick to this day. Is he had a deceased loved one, and we were at Tom D'Agostino and Arlene Nicholson's house. Tom D'Agostino in the States, New England area, is very well-versed author of many different books of New England haunts and law.
Tom D'Agostino.
And we were at their house for dinner, and I believe, not to butcher the story too much, but his girlfriend, Carl's girlfriend, deceased loved one, that was one of the best memories they had not too long before upstairs. And we were both, because their house is haunted. They proclaim it.
Tom's and Arlene's,
and they hear audible things all the time. But we went up there, and Carl and I just looked at each other, just started both crying. And it was like sobbing, crying. Like,
we don't know why to this. We can conjecture, but we don't know what brought on that flood of emotion suddenly.
Yeah.
This woman who died, she had been visiting that house. She was there a couple of times. I'll tell you a little bit about her. October 5th, well, actually the 6th officially. It was sometime during that. The 6th made 13 years since she left us. 13 years on October 6th, just last week. She was 16 years younger than I. We were going to be married, we thought. She died very suddenly from an overdose, self-medicating. So suddenly, the next day, I was leaving messages on her phone. Are we going to do laundry together today? Oh, we were going to go to England and honeymoon. And suddenly she was gone. My life was changed, torn apart in that sense. So 13 years later, and to me, it might as well have been last week, that it happened. I mean, it becomes compartmentalized, but you never totally fill that void. And it just showed how that I did care about her. And, well, that's the house we were in, Tom D'Agostino's house, where she and I had visited together. We just felt, James and I, we were on the top of the stairs.
We were right in the platform, right near the stairs.
Right in the platform near the stairs.
Right near the room.
Suddenly taken over by this emotion.
Yeah, started crying. It was just very interesting. You can, of course, come up with some assumption of what, but I do believe that it was Laura being there and letting Carl know that I'm here, and I felt that emotion. It was just insane because Carl and I are the typical man. We barely cry. I'm just kidding. We do have our emotions, but of course it's not presented as much. And just to have that moment.
I don't know. I whine a lot about my throat ailment that I've developed.
But yeah, just to have that moment and to have the experience, it was interesting.
Yeah, after we lost Laura, and this ties into our conversation. After we lost Laura, there was a succession of signs. I needed to hear from her. That's why anything that happened, I was dubious about it. But we lost her very suddenly, very suddenly. I don't think she'd been planning it long. It was, I believe she took her life. But after she went, and she was, part of our paranormal group that I was in, she was one of us, just, like one of us and one of our people. So I remember I always had the goatee, and she liked it. And I was going to shave it off. I said, I just muttered. I said, I'm sorry, honey. I'm sad. I'm going to shave this off. And the bathroom light turned on and off 3 times. Tom Deck, the author who's visiting, he knew Laura well. His wife went to work at WGBH in Boston, and he would run. And he stayed home working at home that day, and he went out for a run in the morning, like 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. When he came back in, he'd been the only one in his house. He locked the door behind him. He had to unlock it to get back in. In the foyer, in the entranceway, there were 3 shiny new pennies on the floor in front of him. 3 shiny that year pennies. This transpired in 2008. Her friend Lisa, her best friend Lisa, came in to her house and looked at, and when she went into her bedroom, on the pillow, her pillow, she found 3 drops of water. 3, and that made her think of teardrops, and she didn't know Laura was gone. It looked like 3 all within like a day of her dying, and there are 3 shiny teardrops, or 3 drops of water on the pillow. Andrew Lake,
so sad. Oh my gosh.
It was. I cried enough to make up for a lifetime those weeks.
I'm sure.
But I say it with an objectivity and a fascination that these things transpired. Andrew Lake, who knew her very well, another paranormal investigator, a member of our team. In fact, the last time I saw her living, I was with her and Andrew Lake, and out in an investigation. And he saw something in his bedroom when he was going to bed. It glowed. He wasn't asleep by any means. It glowed, glowing in the center of his room. We all had these experiences. Did these convince Laura? Not really, because I wanted to believe that so much, but I have to wonder. And any psychic medium would say, "Oh, how you fool. Of course she was trying to get through to you." I like to think so.
Yeah.
And on top of all of that, Andrew Lake, a few weeks later, called me and he said, "Carl, go to my website. There's something you need to hear." He had established a section of his website. It's called Laura's Page. And he put it on there. He went to the cemetery in Peacedale, Rhode Island, where she's interred. And he said, "I don't know where the grave is, Laura." This is before the stone was there. "I don't know where the grave is, Laura. Help me out." He's recording. He posted this recording. I hear the recording. He says, I don't know where you are, Laura. Help me out." That's right. I guess the stone was there by then, because he said, "I don't know where the stone is." And you hear a voice. Her voice was very distinctive, high pitched, and it goes, "Yes." And then he's interpreted it since, but he heard some like her speaking, but couldn't make it out. But she said yes, and then she's talking to him. By gum, that was Laura's voice. That was Laura's voice. Am I convinced that's Laura? I'm leaning towards. I don't know, but a lot happened. And I'll tell you something else rather strange, and this very sad time. It was remarkable. It was just, I remember that time so vividly because I relive it at this time of year. And it was a very sad Christmas and all that. But I think one of the saddest things was having to tell my mother that she was gone, my elderly mother, But I'll tell you something, Peter, she looked like you. If you want to know what Laura Casey looked like, she looked like you.
Wow.
Physical resemblance.
What? Wow.
If you saw a picture, you'd know. You wouldn't even question. You'd say, "Oh my God, that looks like she could be my lookalike sister." There's something about you. Yeah, you look like.
Born?
What was that?
What year was she born?
I'd have to think about it. I did know right away, 1960 something, or around 70 or something. Well, I'll put it this way: she was 16 years younger than I.
That's
She was 38 years old when she passed on. far too young. And I'll tell you, that was my last chance. I think that was my last chance to have children and a family of my own.
Mm.
And, you know, she was cremated, and the ring I gave her was on her when she died, and family, you know, her sister gave me the ring. So I put that in with the ash. I was the one who lowered her ashes into the ground. And what an experience to hold the 2 pounds of ashes and say, this is my future. This is every dream I had. These are my children in these 2 pounds, and I'm lowering it to the earth. But I had to confront that. Oh, so one succession of things after the other. I was on the way to her funeral. I was buying flowers, and the good-natured lady at the counter, she said, "Oh, these are beautiful flowers. I bet they're for a beautiful girl." I said, "Yes, she is beautiful." She said, she's going to be so happy." And I said, "I hope so." And I'm trying to fight the tears that just won't stay back, you know. And then on the way back from the funeral, it was a bright, sunny October day, and one of our favorite songs, "One Step at a Time," came on the radio. And I was just, but you know, it was still a beautiful time, because I wish it hadn't happened, but it was a beautiful time and a time of transition. There's no getting away from the sadness. She was very close to her little niece, her I think 3.5-year-old niece, and we're back after the funeral at her mother's house, and the niece says, I want Auntie Laura," you know. And I was just, I'm going to pieces inside, you know. It's just, but it's all part of me, you know. It's like Captain Kirk said in Admiral Kirk said in Star Trek: The Country. He said, you know, there was a Vulcan, Spock's brother, that was removing people's pain, but he was being controlled by some other, you know, power. And he was empathic. He could remove people's pain. And Captain Kirk didn't want to experiment. William Shatner, who went into space today, he said, you know what he said out of that whole movie? He said something that was really, even though it was a Star Trek movie, he said something profound. He said to Dr. McCoy, Dr. McCoy said, "You should at least try this." And he said, and Captain Kirk said, "I need my pain. It's part of who I am." All these experiences of 13 years ago, I need that pain. It's part of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I don't forget her. I didn't mean to go off the last 15 minutes on such a story, but you can't. You have to tell a story, you know, to get the impact of it. But she was part of our paranormal group, and we all had an agreement: whoever goes first, come back. You wouldn't expect the youngest of us to go first, but she got through. I think she got through.
But see, that's one thing that, you know, I've mucked around with my friends, and Jane, she's in the chat, that, you know, if one of us passes away, then at least go and freaking haunt the other person, give them voices, give them shadow figures, give them things, you know, sit down and have a chat, you know, like throw things and...
Yeah, well, we can't know how much awareness there is when you cross the veil, but I think some people want to and can't. Now, if that was Laura coming through to us, a member of our team, why didn't she just appear? Why didn't she? Because she did what she could.
Yeah.
Placing pennies next to the doorway was easier. On the inside of the house, that was easier for her. Oh, that was possible for her. Appearing, so I am here, was not. Turning the light on and off 3 times was possible for her. You know.
Yeah.
Harry Houdini, the famed magician and debunker, he and his wife Bess had an agreement, and he was always debunking mediums. He said if he could come through, he would got through to her, and apparently he did not. There's mixed stories about that, but she was. There's a famous recording, you can even hear it on YouTube, where Bess Houdini, they had a seance every Halloween night, because he died on Halloween night, and on 1926, she said, "Harry, we have tried and not heard from you, so we put out the light forever. Goodbye, Harry." So apparently, that's her words, so apparently it didn't come through. Now I'll tell you, my grandmother, my mother's mother, saw Harry Houdini in a performance the last year of his life. And in Providence, Rhode Island, that night in the same room, I think it was the building where the Strand is now, in that same room, in the same night, there was my grandmother, Mildred Willis, my mother's mother, Harry Houdini, and the horror fiction writer H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh, wow.
3 of them were there. And C.M. Eddy, who's also a famous, not as well known as Lovecraft, but an associate of Lovecraft. And H.P. Lovecraft, you've heard of Lovecraft?
Yes. Yep.
He's my cousin.
What?
He's
Oh,
my
wow.
second cousin. There's even, so help me, there's a little bit of a family resemblance there. No, it's all right. He never called me. It's okay. I died in 1937, So,
Yeah.
I mean, I love to tell the story to James, about, H.P. Lovecraft's my cousin.
Yeah, I've heard the story so many times.
Yeah. Right. I tell it as if I never told it every time.
Keep telling it.
And speaking of Halloween, like, what are your thoughts on it being the time of year where the veils are thinnest?
Well, I would say I'd give you too much information, but we have to do a shameless plug. We have a podcast too that we usually didn't regularly, but now we do it a large gap of time. But we're actually doing a show the 28th called on the topic of mediumship. And one of the kind of angles I want to play is that it's a few days before Halloween or Samhain, and how the veil is supposed to be thinnest. But we were discussing over some pizza that I made, where I think the reason that the veil could be the thinnest, so to say, on Halloween is because that's everybody's perspective at that point in time. Lost more days, the Day of the Dead, of course, pagan rituals that occur. So much emphasis is on the deceased, the ghosts, the goblins. So I think it has some element of where the more people that are thinking about it, their ability of you to energize the environment or energize some, if there is some barrier or some veil that is thick or thin during certain times, I think it's when people feed into it. Once again, the house element, the more you feed into it, the haunting, it continues to not digress, but progress. And it's the same thing with Halloween. Yeah. You kind of hear this too. It's a joke. At Christmas, the modern sense of the Western belief of Christmas, like the Christmas spirit. If the Christmas spirit dwindles, then Santa Claus can't deliver the presents, right? Yeah. So it's that same concept. If that spirit's there, that ideology that the veil is the thinnest, then in some sense it could be.
Yeah. I always feel that Halloween with all the years. I've usually been working on Halloween as doing a ghost hunt, but Halloween, I do feel that little special feeling, because that was my favorite night of the year. I would start looking. When I was a kid, I would start looking forward to Halloween in September. Oh, it's September 1st, month before. And it was wonderful to see the Halloween decorations up in school and skeletons and things. And I would so look forward to that. And my father in the morning would always sing his Halloween song. I don't remember all of it, but it was like, witches' hats, coal black hats. Oh, what fun they'll be on Halloween. And, it was just, and they have a succession of classic horror films, the MGM horror films that they'd have are, they would show like the Frankenstein, Dracula, the Mummy, Universal Pictures. That's what I mean to say. Universal Pictures, the Mummy, the Invisible Man, the Wolf Man. The 5 days before Halloween, they'd have those. Anthology. And it was just leading up to it. The sensations of fall and all that. Yeah, that was a special time. So October is a weird month for me. I still feel that like when it's getting to be sunset, it's Halloween. There's something electric in the air. Yeah. Not celebratory for me anymore, but it's my nephews go out and
I think it's also a good emphasis too. I like to use this as an argument for people. Is that look at the he made a good point on the decorations, Halloween, ghosts, skeletons, and I like to point it to a child. A child won't know what a ghost is unless it's emphasized to what a ghost is to them, what it is, what this is, what it's supposed to be, and that's what Halloween enables people that throughout many different cultures. So, I think that's a good it's a good point to look at. We wouldn't know what ghosts are if it wasn't for Halloween and the folklores that intertwine within it.
Yeah, wow. Well, I will see if anybody in the chat has got any questions for you guys.
I'm talking, so there's plenty to comment on. You know,
I know, like normally, you know, like I chat for about an hour and then, you know, open up for questions, but I could talk to you guys for hours.
Well, I'd like to do a shout out, say hello to Elise Gianmarco Carlson, our dear friend, and she's a member. Well, she's the director of Panorama Paranormal, which is her and me. She's associated very closely with Demonology, which is he and me. You know,
Yes.
so I think Elise is being a good girl and went to bed sensibly. But
And we're also investigators together as well,
Yes.
Part of the New England division of PPRI, which is a Canadian parapsychology group, and the New England division with Spencer Collins and I don't know Mike's last name, but yeah, so we are also parapsychological investigators with PPRI.
Okay.
parapsychological professionals.
It's tough, Mr.
That is parapsychological. Yeah.
Parapsychological investigator.
Yeah. We also
yeah.
have
So anybody watching,
Paranormal. Yeah.
I call that paranormal paramedics when they expect us to come any time of night or day.
On call 24/7.
Yeah, don't you show up in a van? I saw that on television, you know.
But yes, I do encourage everyone, you know, watching either, you know, through the live or, you know, afterwards to go and check Carl and James' website out. It is, if you want to know where they've been, what TV they've been on, their podcasts, go and check it out.
Highly recommend.
Yeah, there's a lot of information on there. And you guys also have your own YouTube channel as well, and you upload, you know, quite interesting topics on there too.
We also have a podcast show we do. It's usually done once a week, but sometimes with, you know, the things this time of year, you know, take precedence. So every few weeks. Our recent show, the subject, they're various subjects and guests. And it's a well-presented show, I do think.
Yes, I have listened to a bit of it, yes.
We did a show on
with, you know, my friends Isaac and Megan from Hidden Shadows podcast.
Wow. You're not witches, are you?
No.
Yeah.
Depends who you ask.
Oh, I know. Some witches are very secretive. Little devils.
Sorry.
Two little.
Yes.
But yeah, no, we do have our own show. Like I alluded to earlier, is that we have a show 28th. Our last show was we did a 3-part series. We did witches, vampires, and werewolves. You know.
Yes.
We have some of the classes, the classics out of the way.
Well, you think about it. With demonology, vampires, witches, and werewolves have a huge part of the lore. You know, like we've been talking about a lot lately because it's a topic we've talked about recently. It's like a lot of serial killers either were vampires or werewolves, and there was some supernatural element to the humanity of why these people did it. And now we, of course, know that it's psychosis, and you know they were just probably really crazy and really wanted to kill people, but. You know, we try to hit upon a lot of topics that make you think. We're, you know, of course, we have our own theories and opinions because some of this field, or most of this field, is opinion and theory. There's facts that can be brought into it, but we try to make observation. And not everybody likes our topics and likes how we present it because it's hard for people to swallow a pill that they've
Yeah.
believed in for so long, and it rattles the cages for some, and of course that's going to happen, but you have to me, knowledge is power, but it's also a weakness too in some form, but we try to give you as much perspective as possible. Like we a lot of the things that we talk about, we don't necessarily maybe believe in, but there are theories out there that exist, and these to be respected and understood, because there's so many different dynamics that we come across.
Oh, for sure. And that's the thing with, the paranormal field, there is nobody knows the answer to anything. They don't know if a piece of equipment is like really picking up a ghost or a spirit. Like we're only, it's only conjecture and theory, and like everything is scientific aspect all put behind it. So it's definitely a fascinating thing, and you can really like go down a wormhole of information of just the more you look into it, the more you want to know, and the more you learn, and then the more questions you get. It's just fascinating.
I think that's why nobody can call themselves an expert, because it's just exponential, isn't it? Just
Well, I think that's the biggest thing is like there's no paranormal expert, but there can be experts of a certain field within the paranormal. Like to me, like if I really want dedicated proof on photography, like if I believe this pareidolia involved, I'll seek somebody that's been a photographer and certified for many years. Or if I really want to delve deep into an audio piece, maybe get an audio engineer. They go to college in a long time, or somebody that, like my major field. Even though I do have a theology background, I'm a deacon and do demonology like Carl does demonology. I work a career. I'm from the HVAC field, so I take a lot of what I learn in construction and implement it when I look at people's houses. So there are experts of certain fields that can be applied, but that doesn't make you the ever expansive expert of the whole entire field. And somebody that I have respect for, and I know Carl is a deep friend of his as well, but he's a TV personality. And one of the greatest things he's ever said to me, and I have respect for him on this because he is a TV personality. And of course, I want to give a shout out. You're talking about Elise earlier. Carl, Elise, and Brian are doing an event called History of the Paranormal at Hartside in Rhode Island, Lincoln, Rhode Island.
I know you're going to say.
But Brian Kano, who is a TV personality, everybody knows him, Paranormal, Calling Camera, Haunted Collector, he will say, when the question is asked of him, what do you think a ghost is? And the best answer he ever gave, and I have respect, I don't know.
I concur.
I don't know. Like, for a person that's on television and is primed on that, to give that honest of an answer, you have to have respect on that, because the best answer is, I don't know. It really is.
Like, I mean, it's taken, the ego and the arrogance and all of it out of it. So, that is, very well put. Yeah.
Do we have any questions?
We have a lot.
They're all good questions and comments, I'm sure.
Yeah, our website for people, by the way, is easy. Yeah. It's www.demonology.org. So DEMONOLOGY.org.
Yes,
how are you logged into that? I don't know.
Yes, I do have Carl and James links in the description. But is there any questions, guys? Well, how about we end it on this? What would you say to somebody who doesn't believe in demons?
Oh,
you want to tackle that one first, or do you want
to? I'd say suit yourself. I'm not here to convince you. Yeah. It's too much of an effort to try and convince somebody if they're not believing in it. If they're open-minded and they want to learn, yeah, I can say, I don't need you to believe in demons. I'll tell you why I do and what my basic interpretation of them is. So I have times where I don't, but if somebody's really opposing that belief in the supernatural, or supernatural to me is equated with impossible. But if somebody doesn't believe in this phenomena, their last answer is usually, well. They get that last word in, well. I just say that would be, I don't need to convince you. I really don't care to, can try to convince you. I won't be able to convince you. I just must say I have experienced things that cannot be explained. I wouldn't believe it either if I didn't see and hear about these things and experience them myself. I don't need to convince you. That's what I would say. If you want to hear why I believe, I'll tell you. I'm not sure how even to define a demon, that's going to be all inclusive, an explanation. But I've had enough happen. I know there's something to it. That's what I'd say, simply like that.
And I'll tackle, because I really agree with him on that answer. I'll tackle this one. And I know he said bluffed, and this is more eccentric to Carl's story, but I think there are different intelligent levels to what we deal with. Of course, we hear residual, which is like a tape playing over and over again, right? But we tend to use the word intelligence. We forget that we use this word. I think if you got to look at a demonic haunting, in a sense, there is intelligence to it because it is being very methodic in its way, very manipulative. Of course, we were talking about possession earlier. There are two different forms of possession, transient and perfect possession. But this comes in the basis through the oppression stage or obsession stage. And there are key elements of intelligence on how they interact with the environment, the people. And it very varies on the entity or the being that you are maybe dealing with, because maybe a lot more progressive, faster. Maybe it's more suppressive, a lot of this person. But once again, though, is regardless of how intelligent it is, it still ends to the point of the human element of it. Because for possession to occur, the human tends to have to let the demonic entity in by invitation, either knowingly or unknowingly. So there is intelligence, but anytime there's that element where you can still digress from the situation by doing certain things. So yeah, that's actually a really good question. But remember, if we're based on the nature of what a demon is, and back to the Pazuzu thing from earlier, it's been around for 10,000, 20,000 years. Yeah, I think that has power if these things do actually exist and that old. The knowledge they have, the demise of humanity in many different facets, and the belief changes that have occurred. So they have a lot of wealth of knowledge on their side when it comes to dealing with humans and affecting them, right?
But do they need to use that intelligence?
Yeah.
Do they need to employ that to work their mischief? I don't know. There does seem to be some variance in their power.
Yeah.
So that may be acquainted with intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you bluff the demon, because to us, the demon is not real in a physical sense. Maybe we're not as real to the demons. We're not on their level. So, yeah, we kind of bluffed it to get rid of it. I feel I have the power to get you out. You're non-physical. You only have that much strength. We want you gone. That's kind of bluffing.
Yeah.
As you're going through the motions, it's a temporary ignorance. You're actually synthesizing. You work toward that. You work with the tools you have. You act like you can catch the demon out because there's got to be a higher power to it.
Yeah.
If these things exist, there has to be something to counter them.
Yeah, for sure.
And I just find through experience, of course, they're not all powerful. They're rather childlike. Different intelligence levels. Interesting premise. And I'm not sure I have an answer, but different levels of strength and energy.
Have you been to the Sally house? The Sally house. Ugh.
I don't believe I have. My brother might have been to the Sally House. Where's that located?
Ohio.
And so I've been to Ohio a few times. I've been there for a couple of lectures there, and and conferences. Let's see, where have I been in Ohio? I've been to Oklahoma a couple of times, but I don't believe I've been to the Sally House. I have heard of it. I'm trying to recollect that there's, by chance, sometime I stopped.
It's in the Midwest for sure. I know that for
sure. I've not
certain.
been there yet. No, I have not yet. I have not yet. I've heard of it. Would like to.
Leslie's asking, do you think that a specific entity actually knows or calls you to a location?
Yeah, I actually have a good, I've been talking about this a lot lately, is I think that's the case because for one circumstance, I had a team across, talk about the Midwest, I believe it was a team out of Indiana that got a recording that said James Annitto. Mind you, there's only 2 James Annittos that exist in the world. This world, it's my father, and I'm the second James R. Annitto, the second. So, but I utilize James Annitto. He utilizes Jimmy Annitto or Jim Annitto. That's how he goes by. And so they got on recording James Annitto. Maybe that was enacting to challenge me to get involved in the case. But one of the craziest things that I dealt with where it interacted with me personally is that, not to linger on the story too long, but basically I was in the stage of dealing with clients. I hadn't physically been there yet, physically met these people, never seen the house. And the week of going to this case, I had a prolific nightmare where I went to the house, of course, observed my surroundings, met the family, husband and wife and 3 children. And after doing my interview, I killed every single one of them. And
this is the dream he's talking about.
Yeah. So I killed the whole family. And my children, and it was first person, by the way, and it was very emotional. Like when I woke up, I was startled. Like I didn't vomit or anything like that, nothing that of physical nature, because blood and gore doesn't bother me, but I was still shocked, like I was dreaming of killing children. Like it sounds crazy, and what's just crazy about the prolific nightmare is I definitely think it was not a challenge, but warning me, if I come here, this is what could happen. Because the craziest thing is, if the quick knowledge of what I said is I never met these individuals, never seen where they live, never seen their physical features, like their face. I've seen scratches on their arm. It's hard to tell what a person looks like there from a scratch on an arm. But when it got to the house was the same, the environment was the same, the homeowners were the same, the kids were the same, to my nightmare. To the mold on the face, to the pimple on the kid's face. It was like really, it took me back, but I would say that was one of the times that it really interacted with my life. It interceded into my dreams or my consciousness. And of course,
that must have really shaken you up.
Well, yeah, definitely. It made me think, of course you have to have a game face on. Like Carl said, you have to be there for a reason. So you kind of have to jump back to why you are there and to try to get off of that. But to really, for a split point, I'm in my mind is what happens if I really do get possessed and kill this family? Was this a precognition? Was this something to be? Or was this manipulation? And thankfully, it was just manipulation that deterred me, even though I'm too stupid to be deterred. But that's something that always follows me to this day, because it was just how is this possible? And I'm grateful that I experienced that, but the same thing, I really, I know I never will kill a child in my life because I have a 4-year-old, and I think they're so innocent and lovely. But I had that experience. It's just something I would never forget. An emotion that I felt, it wasn't out of my body experience. It was I lived every moment of it.
Myself,
I must say that I really respect the both of you and the way you your views on the field, you know, in all its facets. And, you know, you are definitely, you know, an inspiration to, you know, someone like me who, you know, I haven't been investigating for nearly as long or anywhere near as long as what you guys have. But your approach to it and, you know, the way you view it is so unique and missing in so many, you know, groups, whether it's, you know, over in the States with you or the UK or in here. It's just
it's refreshing, isn't it?
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And, you know, kudos to you both, like, for the work you do. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, and
You too. You.
yeah, you know, it's an honor to work with Carl, and it's you know,
Same here.
it's also been an honor to be on with you ladies, and you know, hopefully have us on again.
Yeah, Ethereal Sisters Paranormal. You're an investigative team as well. You don't just do the show. You know, we should interview you sometime. Have you?
Yeah.
After just synchronize our
Be terrific.
synchronize our respective schedules.
Yeah, we could talk about Australian haunts.
You know, you were mentioning about being
Yes.
a demon. The guest mentioned like a demon challenging, like trying to get you back in the arena. I had a situation, almost had a situation 2 years ago. My friend Kyle, who is now my landlord, a situation where somebody felt they had a demon in their house, and it was a young woman and her boyfriend, and that was on Messer Street in Cranston, Rhode Island. Well, Providence, Rhode Island, the edge of Cranston. And Messer Street was where I had the encounter with that demonic case, the 14-year-old boy, Lucas. Same street, just a lot of years apart. And I thought, it remembers me. It's trying to get me back there. I have another challenge. Second time, well, won't this make for a good television episode or maybe a movie? But then the person stopped getting back. I asked, you know, my friend Kyle about it. I said, whatever happened with it? She said, oh, she said it's not a problem anymore. Well, she had a psychic come in, and it's not a problem anymore. Darn, I kind of wish it was. You know, I played out this whole dramatic scenario in my mind. Tomorrow returns. I was going to wear my, you know, my black trench coat, my hat, which I have taken, you know, pictures of. I was going to show up with my briefcase. I had this all in my mind.
Really too.
I figured this in 3 years, this will be a motion picture, you know. But then she just petered out. You know, not. You know, no, it's not bothering her anymore. She found somebody else. It's not bothering anybody. Come on now.
Oh no.
Parents don't always cooperate. It's like Chief Dan George said in the movie Little Big Man. Sometimes the magic works and sometimes it doesn't. I would slow down part 2, but no, nothing dramatic. Didn't involve me. They had asked for me because they knew Kyle knew me, and they'd asked for me, and they did it, and so they didn't ask for me long enough. I'm glad I got back.
Does your twin Keith still investigate, Carl?
Yes, he is. He's pretty active. He'll go out. He usually handles a deliverance, you know, which is where you do like an expulsion. Doesn't always have to be dramatic and screaming and all and things flying around. But he'll do a deliverance. So yes, well, sometimes the magic works, like, you know, and I'll tell you, October, what a weird month. On ushering in October, on September 30th, that's my nephew's birthday, my brother's son. And it's also the date that his mother-in-law passed away. My brother's mother-in-law, Sandra, his wife, her mother died at the age of 98, and she died peacefully, and she had given birth to 7 children, all of which are still with us. And, you know, she had dementia over 20 years, and she just passed quietly. And so she died that night. It's still, you know, sad, though. It's a part of your life gone. So she passed. And my mother had died 2 years ago as of October 1st.
Is that the demon, James?
The next day. What's that? Yeah.
James is looking at something I'm saying. Is that the demon?
That's because
No, it's my girlfriend opened the door.
Yeah, it was open and closed, I can tell you, but we can explain that. Yeah.
The object moving car.
So
Sorry,
October,
trans
this time of
girlfriend.
year, yeah. Well, I wish we could get together for some time for coffee and tea and all that, but maybe it's some other when things open up more.
Yeah, maybe we'll come. Maybe we'll come exercise some kangaroos.
Yeah.
We'll shout you a beer.
I actually, what's funny is that the because I have so many friends and contacts in the States, which is just awesome. But this misconception that we have, these man-eating spiders here and snakes in the cupboards and kangaroos.
We do.
Kangaroos
We do.
jumping down the suburban streets.
What about those monitor lizards?
What?
Don't you have those 12 feet long monitor lizards? Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry, that was in the Pleistocene. That was a lot of years ago. Don't
But
you?
I tell you what, the other night, a couple of nights ago, I went out the back. A couple of nights ago, I was talking to a friend on my phone, and it was like 11:30 at night because of time difference. And I hear a noise. I look over, and here's this kangaroo just chilling, having something to eat in the backyard. And I thought, oh my God, such a stereotypical thing. Oh, look, there's a kangaroo in my backyard. And I literally had the kangaroo in my backyard.
Oh, do you have a kangaroo removal service there where they get the animal? So what you say?
I used to have the same family come back every year, and it got to the point, like she would have her Joey, and like my kids used to love it, and I could hang my washing out, and she, would only be a couple of meters from me with her Joey. Just from, I guess, getting used to us and coming back each year. But they love to eat your entire garden.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I get them on my front lawn after the reticulation's been on, especially when it's hot. They'll come out in an evening and come and eat your front lawn because of the moisture.
Yeah, but we're in the hills area. We're not
really in suburbia.
They're not just jumping down the freeway. And
So when you see them, do you open the door and say, "Blimey, it's a nimble kangaroo"?
Yeah,
Nimble kangaroo in the yard.
Oh, she's a beauty.
Look at that food.
Well, there's another animal I'm interested in mostly in the outback in the bush area. You have the thylacine. You have the Tasmanian tiger, which has been extinct since 1936.
But there have been
there's convincing accounts of seeing it. They're convincing footage.
Yes.
So what I mean, there are 3 or 5 of them extant. They could become extinct at any minute if they're not now. I like to think there are some. I like to think so.
There's unfortunately a lot of animals on, that kind of endangered list.
Yeah.
And, wombats, like personal favourite of mine, is on it as well. So save the wombats. Anyway, I will let you.
Find me a Tasmanian tiger, the thylacine, or a dodo. I'll travel for that. I will.
We're going to Tasmania.
And I'm not well versed in it. I'm not well educated, but I am very, very taken, very respectful, and very enamored with the Aboriginal culture. Arboreal, means of the South. That's native to Australia. Arboreal, Aborigines. That's where they get the name, and they have been. We're such an isolated people for tens of thousands of years.
Yes.
It's remarkable. Yeah, and they are proud people. They have a very complex culture and language.
And then
They draw pictures on cave walls. No, And they have their own creation legend of how
Yes.
the world came to be.
Yes. All right. Well, I will finish off. What have you guys got coming next that people watching can go and see?
Well, Prime, we do have a couple of more. I've been to paranormal conference, Paracons, in our region and in New England. But upcoming is the Warren's conference. Warren's Seekers of the Supernatural is taking place basically Halloween weekend on the 30th and 31st of October, and that's going to be in Waterbury, Connecticut, and we are featured speakers there. So we'll be along with many other notables in the paranormal fields. So yeah, we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, we have a lot more. If you want to check it out, our Facebook, our webpage.
Things coming up. Which city?
Our personal, November 6th, which city? Which City Parafest in Salem, Massachusetts. But yeah, if you're interested, go to our Duo Demonology page on Facebook or Instagram where we post all our events.
Yes. Go give them a follow, guys, and go and check out the website and listen to their podcast.
Super interesting.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure and an honor talking to both of you. So
thanks, guys.
Yes. Thank you very
much. It's having a good time. We've shared some laughs and some tears tonight. It's been,
we have, yeah.
I look forward to hearing from you,
you
two lovely ladies. Yeah, well, our pleasure. We want to hear from you again.
Yes,
to be sure.
Oh,
yes, definitely.
Yes, and we will happily come on for an interview on your podcast. So if you're happy, you're British Australian girls.
British Australians, yes.
Well, we would love to have you. We'll reach out very soon.
My demon is.
And I'll bring
see
my
if they're still on her. Yeah, Jen, we'll see if they're still on her next time. They'll say, "Oh, that's a tape." Nothing different about that girl.
But ladies, they're the same for my bed, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We will catch up soon.
Awesome, guys. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Have a sunny day. Bye.
Bye. All right, guys. Oh man, that was oh my gosh, that was absolutely incredible, fascinating. You guys, you need to go follow them on every social platform.
That's super interesting. Absolutely.
Yeah. And they've been on Hidden in the Shadows podcast with Isaac and Megan, who were my last guests on the show. So yeah, even go and listen to their podcast interview. And yeah, if you're not following Isaac and Megan from Hidden in the Shadows, like go do that.
It now. Do it now.
Go do it. But yeah, I have got some things coming up that I will probably have a chat to you guys about maybe Monday. Maybe Monday, which for you guys in the States will be Sunday night. So yes, we might do that. I might see if Jen wants to do it with me. And thank you all for tuning in and showing your support and listening. It's lovely to see you all in the chat, and it's felt good to actually be on live my channel again, because it's been a while. I know I've kind of forgotten how to do it. So. But now I have my awesome sidekick here. So all right, everyone, have a lovely day and a safe night. And Adam, good Lord, my man, have a flipping day off. You're going to need it for Halloween, dude. You're going to need it. Thank you, guys. Love you all. And we will catch up on Sunday night. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.